Dear friends, I think most of us think of temptation in terms of moral weakness. In our minds, the inclination to evil is something that creeps in, as it were, through the cracks of a flawed character. And certainly there's an element of truth to that. The alcoholic is tempted to drink to excess. A compulsive gambler is tempted by every opportunity to wager. A lazy person is tempted to idleness. A lecherous person is tempted to illicit sex. And you could multiply those examples. All of us have areas of weakness in our lives where we are tempted. We are forced to fight battles of temptation. But that's really only half the story. And our gospel reading for today tells us the other half. It's Luke's account of the wilderness temptations of Jesus. There were 3 in number, and not one of them had to do with weakness. On the contrary, the tempter tested Jesus at his points of strength. At his points of strength. The tempter says to Jesus, "If you are the Son of God, command this stone turn into bread." Jesus was tempted to use his strength, his power, really, in a selfish way. And then the devil showed him all the kingdoms of the earth and said to him, "I will give all of this to you. Prostrate yourself and do homage to me, and all of this will be yours." Jesus had the power, really, of a great vision. It was the driving passion of his life. He dreamed of a day when, to put it concisely, he dreamed of a day when God's will would be done on earth as it is in heaven. And Satan was tempting him to take shortcuts, to employ evil methods to obtain a good objective. And finally, the devil leads him to Jerusalem, sets him on top of the temple, and says to him, "Throw yourself down. God has promised to protect you." A major strength in his life of Jesus, was his faith in the Father. And so he's being tempted to use that faith in his Father to claim a personal exemption for himself from the law of gravity, actually, for the effects of the law of gravity. Now, temptation is a matter of moral weakness for sure, but we need to go a step further and affirm that sometimes, I would say often, temptation is a matter of moral strength. Sometimes we are tempted where we are weak, but I also have the impression that we are maybe more frequently even and more severely tempted where we are strong. Now, all of the temptations of Jesus were aimed at his strength, his power. It would not occur to any of us to compare our power with his power, but we do need to recognize that we all have some. We have some power, we have some strength. Yes, we are weak, we don't deny that, but we are also strong, and we should not deny that. Here's what I mean by that. What I'm saying is that we recognize that there are areas in our life of weakness and there are areas in our life of power. And the question would be, how are we being tempted with reference to those areas of strength or power in our lives? We all have some power, and the question is, what are we doing? How are we using that power that's in our lives? Let me give you a couple of examples. Here's a young man, say, with a handsome appearance and a winsome personality. He is, say, on the high school basketball team, he's the star. And he's president of the senior class. So he's definitely, those things give him power. And he has people look up to him. He has influence over people. He has to ask himself, what am I doing with all of this? Am I using all of this just for myself? Or am I using it in a way that advances God's plans and God's purposes in our world? Here is a girl who has a beautiful face and a well-proportioned physique. Those two things make her attractive, and that attractiveness gives her some strength, some power. She has influence over other people. Her question would be, how am I using that? Is that just for me, in a selfish way, or am I using that in another way? Here's a man who has money. He owns the business, the store, the factory. Others work for him. He does the hiring and the firing, and that gives him a great deal of power over the lives of his people. He can lift them up, or he can push them down. He needs to ask himself, how am I using this power that I have? Now, you may be thinking, well, yeah, but I don't own the business, and I'm not a handsome young man, and I'm not a beautiful young woman, and I don't do hiring or firing. What about me? And my answer is, we all have power. No matter how weak we may think we are, we all have power. I can tell you this, I know of a man who has a terrible weakness. He's a drug addict. He can hardly make it through a single day without feeding his addiction. But the same young man has tremendous power. He is dearly and deeply loved by his father and mother, and that puts him in a position of strength. And he has used that strength to cost his parents thousands of dollars and hundreds of sleepless nights. He's taken the power of love, the fact that people love him. That's a strength. People love you. Everybody has that strength, because everybody is loved by someone. And the question would be, what am I doing with that? This young man took the power of love and used it to inflict untold suffering on the people who loved him. Well, most of us are not drug addicts, and we can be grateful for that, but we are all loved by somebody, and that puts a certain power in our hands. And we can use all of our strengths, all of our powers, to say it quite simply, to help or to hurt, to advance the causes of God or the causes of ourselves, to do the will of God on this earth or to do our own will on this earth. And I am convinced that as many people have had their lives ruined by misusing their strength as have them ruined by giving into their weakness. And on this first Sunday of Lent, when we think about these temptations of Jesus, it's an opportunity for us to take a look not just at our own weakness, we're all aware of that, but take a look at the other side of that, look at our strengths, our power. And that is where we can be sure temptation will come to us. Amen.